What's good, y'all? Thanks for stopping back through to discuss another episode of Iyanla Fix My Life. This is season 6, episode 11. In this episode, Iyanla speaks with Diamond Reynolds, who at the time was Philando Castile's fiance. So it's been just over a year since Philando was murdered by a police officer in his car. Diamond was in the car at the time when Philando was killed, and so was Diamond's 4-year-old daughter in the car. And just real quick, she live streamed the aftermath of the shooting on Facebook. And of course, we remember the whole story, how it went down in the news and everything. But so here we are, just over a year later, and she's sitting down talking to Iyanla about the trauma she experienced from this occurrence. And I don't know. Okay, so this episode stirred up a lot of emotion, just within me personally, because okay, first of all, the baby. Okay, the baby was in the car when this happened, and the reason why that struck me in particular is because I thought about something like that happening with my daughter. Okay, and I don't know I don't know what kind of strength it would take to get through something like that, because it's completely out of your hands. Whatever happens in a situation like that is completely and totally out of your hands when you are face to face with a scared police officer who has a gun. Okay, and okay, so that's number one, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But that's number one. Number two, we really got to see yet again how implicit bias just really is so embedded in the creed of this nation that these are the types of things that continue to happen. Okay, racism is not a secret, and it's unfortunate. It's beyond unfortunate, and unfortunate is an understatement. But the police, in my mind, at one point in my mind, were the good guys. Okay, as a kid, you know, you get in trouble, you call the police. Like if something was happening and you felt like you needed help, in my mind, you would call the police because the police are supposed to protect and serve, right? But after years of living and the world really showing its ass, I can't really say that with confidence nowadays. So that's number two, is the implicit bias and the implications of that. And not, and more pointed, I guess you could say, the implicit bias and the implications that bias has on us. Okay, so you know, and then also another something that really surfaced for me watching this was the of course the trauma, you know, and that just resonated with me again because I'll say that that shit is in our blood. Okay, so it just is what it is. It just is what it is as far as that's concerned. And if you want to know more so about what I mean by that, go back to my Mitchell Brothers review. It's I can't remember which one because it's 3 parts that I did. I did all 3 parts, but I believe it was the first part where I mentioned a book that explains how trauma is in our blood. And so if you want to know more about that, just go back to that video. And I did mention the name of the book in that video. So anyway, y'all, I'm not trying to keep us here forever and ever. But I'm going to just talk about a few things, okay? So Iyanla sits down with Diamond first. And she kind of sort of just gets acquainted with her and talks about, you know, how she's feeling since Philando got killed. And they had been together or known each other for a total of 14 years. I think she said they were together for 4 years and had known each other for 10. Philando was really kind of sort of like her structure. And Philando was the person, she said, that made her feel like she had purpose again in life. And I'll just say this. She, aside from this particular trauma of her man being killed right in front of her, it sounds to me like she experienced some trauma throughout her life prior to this incident. Like, it just sounds like something might have been going on in her life before to get her to a place where she didn't feel like she was worthy or was beautiful or whatever until Philando came along. So anyway, that was that. Now, the day of the shooting, she says, started out just like any other day. And he got his gun for protection. She explained to Iyanla it was for protection. So he gets his gun out the lockbox, goes on, and, you know, it was just a regular day for them. So they in the car. The police pull them over. Now, the police officer said they got pulled over because of a broken tail light. But if y'all notice, when the police car was approaching their car, he said the two occupants looked like they were suspects in a robbery. So basically, I'm thinking driving while black, basically. And I mean, the car, sometimes, you know, we'll associate like driving a nice car in a certain neighborhood being black and getting pulled over because of all of those things together. But in this particular instance, it was just flat out driving while black. Okay. That's it. Okay. So pulls them over and cites the broken tail light. Philando reaches for his license and his registration in the glove box, then in the center arm console. He couldn't find it, so then he was going to have to reach for his wallet. So Philando tells the officer, I just want to let you know I do have a permit to carry a concealed weapon, and I have it, you know, and from what it sounds like Philando was just telling the officer that so he would be aware. Meanwhile, probably reaching for his wallet to get his license and registration. And in that moment, the officer thought he was reaching for the gun and shot him. Okay. Here's where I'm fucked up at, okay? Because that officer shot Philando because he was scared, okay? And that surfaces later on in the episode when the retired veteran cop comes on and was talking to Iyanla. But this is what I want to say about scared police officers. Okay. If you're that fucking scared, you should not be a cop. Okay? It's just as simple as that, because they said it too. Every I forgot how exactly they put it, but every person in a uniform should not be a cop, basically, or some shit like that. But y'all get what I'm trying to say, because my thing is, that's the line of work you chose. Okay. So in my mind, if I'm choosing to be a public servant, you never know what you're going to get when you go out into the public. So that means that prior to you taking that oath to protect and serve, that means that you should have an understanding of what you may encounter. And you need to understand that you can't just be scared all the time. Because if you that scared, what are you doing out here? You know what I'm saying? That's like somebody like me trying to be a made man in the mob. You know what I'm saying? I'm not cut out for that shit. So if you're not cut out for it, don't take an oath to protect and serve nobody's community. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Now, that's just me on this little base level of this little channel I got talking about just my opinions. But I'm just saying, I don't feel comfortable out in these streets knowing that it's so many people on the police force that's scared like that. Okay? Because that's the reason why. And you could tell in the officer's voice that he was nervous. First of all, he was nervous when he approached the car. And then when Philando told him he had a pistol in the car, and the cop started stuttering and voice started shaking and trembling. Okay, so then he fires into the car at least six, 10, maybe it was a bunch of times. Okay, that again says he was scared. Okay, because fear causes that type of visceral reaction. You know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, if I'm walking, okay, I'm walking out my building and I see a big ass snake across out front the building, I'm a scream like shit, right? Because I'm scared. And in that moment, I'm not thinking, you know what I'm saying? But I don't have a gun in my hand, and I didn't take an oath to protect and serve nobody's community. Okay, I hope y'all get what I'm saying. And so he shoots Philando. Okay, the cop shoots Philando, and in the aftermath, once Diamond started streaming on Facebook Live, the officer says, I told him not to reach for it. But even then, in his voice, you could tell how scared he was. Okay, so not only he and the officer just threw all caution to the wind because the baby was in the back. The baby was in the back seat of the car. Y'all, I don't know. I'm gonna just say this. I've gotten pulled over a couple of times, and I was scared. I knew I hadn't done anything, you know what I'm saying? But it was simple. Like, I made a U-turn in traffic because I had forgotten something here. I was on my way to work and I forgot something at home, and just right in that split second, I remembered that what I forgot, and I was like, oh shit, let me buck this U and go back in the house and get what I need to get. But I made the U-turn, okay, and it was safe to make the U-turn, but I got pulled over for that. And when I got pulled over, it was shortly after the Sandra Bland incident. And, you know, I was like, I was terrified. And I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, how you supposed to be out here to protect and serve, yet I'm terrified when you get behind me, because I'm like, please don't pull me over. And if you do pull me over, I hope don't nothing go down. You know what I'm saying? I just hope. And that's a fucked up way to be. Okay, so whatever, y'all. Let's move on. So Iyanla brings on Trayvon's mom, okay, Miss Sabrina, and Iyanla and Miss Sabrina talk for a second, okay? And Miss Sabrina and Diamond meet. And Miss Sabrina just gave Diamond some advice and was like, you know, you should seek out a support group because there are people that will help you, and, you know, people you could talk to or whatever. Just a different way to, you know, deal with your trauma and to help get you through it. And she did give her a Bible verse. I believe she said it was from Proverbs. You know, but I think that really did something for Diamond to meet with Trayvon Martin's mom, because she lived it. Okay, so, and that's what Diamond was struggling with, was a way to cope with the reality of Philando getting killed in front of her. Okay, so that's that, y'all. Okay, then this is where the show transitions into the retired police officer, the 21-year veteran that I mentioned earlier. This is where he comes on. And here again, it was just more evident, because he even said that these police officers get all these kinds of training, firearms training, domestic violence training, all of this kind of training, and yet and still they are shooting and killing us on a regular basis. So in my mind, it's not the training, okay? It's the bias that is embedded into people's brains. That's what it is. Like, I don't know about like cultural competency training. I mean, we could say that, and that sounds all fine and good on the surface, and I'm not knocking it, but I'm just saying, I don't know, man. It's just a long road. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a very long road, and who's to say, you know, that maybe eventually that will come to pass. There'll be more diversity, cultural competency training, and so on and so forth. But I'm like, ain't no, I don't know, man. I just don't see no training unless it's an iterative process that is aimed at systemically changing the processes and the practices that are in place that are keeping these types of people in uniform. I just don't see it. But anyway, so Diamond meets the police officer, the retired police officer, and we find out that the police department where Philando was killed hasn't reached out to Diamond at all. Of course, they reached out to his mom, but as far as her, they haven't extended, and what they say, they haven't extended an olive branch to her at all, which is no surprise, you know, because they don't want to be financially responsible to Diamond. They weren't married, so they probably just like, oh well, you know, whatever, we did our part, we reached out to the mom, so whatever the fuck else. Which is, again, no surprise, but it's still like, damn, she was in a car and her baby was in a car. So, but the retired veteran said, you know, you could go to the precinct, you know, to any precinct, and talk about the type of person Philando was and humanize him. But why should we have to do that? Why is it that we have to be reactive instead of proactive with these types of situations? Like, why aren't we already treating everybody as we all are human? Like, just because you are wearing a uniform and you have a badge and a gun, that make you better, or that make you more superior to make those life-changing decisions for people because you're scared. You know what I'm saying? So I just feel like a lot of what is happening is being reactive to a situation that is so far beyond trying to do patchwork and patch jobs. You know what I'm saying? We are where we are for a reason. And people, I think people just fail to realize that racism didn't just pop up one day. Okay? It didn't just pop up one day. That's the shit that is woven into the tapestry of this country. So people be acting like, oh, racism, what? No. But anyway, y'all, listen, I struggled with, even after I saw the episode, I was like, I don't even know if I want to do a video, but I'm doing a video. So here we are talking about it. Listen, these are just my opinions, my thoughts. You don't have to agree. You can very well disagree. You know, leave it in the comments. How do you feel? Okay. But don't get in my comments and saying no hateful shit. Okay. Because this is a discussion and it's not an attack. It's not, none of that. So if you have a perspective and you think that you can offer a different way of seeing something, then do that. But don't get in the comments with no hateful ass shit, because that's not what we here for. Okay, so let's see. He says civilians should stop giving police an excuse, quote unquote. Should stop giving police an excuse. That caught Iyanla, and immediately that caught me, because I was like, what the fuck you mean? But he goes on to explain that we always say they need more training, as in police officers, they need more training, this, that, and the other. But where he was coming from, he said was that, no, it's not that police officers need more training. It's like the people need to hold them more accountable for the training that they already received. Okay. Okay. Then he made mention of like bridging the gap between police and the black community. Again, that's another something that is like, why is it even, I mean, I know why it's like that to begin with, but ain't nobody really talking about, everybody talking about bridging the gap between police and the black community. But can we start trying to understand why it's just the black community that needs to bridge that gap? You know what I'm saying? People talk about that all the time. I hear that all the time. Bridge this between the black community, bridge that gap, the black community. And I get it, but can we start looking at why it's even like that to begin with? Like, go back. You know what I'm saying? This shit drudged up Jim Crow in my mind, because the police officer said, okay, it's modern day. We not talking about 1940s. And immediately when he said 1940s, Jim Crow laws popped into my mind, because right after black codes, okay, during Reconstruction, there was Jim Crow laws from the end of Reconstruction all the way up through the Civil Rights era, which you might as well say was almost damn near a century. Okay, so I don't know, y'all. I just really think that there's so much that isn't talked about, and so much that is constantly like swept under the rug, starting with like what our children are learning in school and in history books. You know what I'm saying? So I could sit here all night and talk y'all head off about everything under the sun that has to do with that, but I'm not going to. The show closes out with Diamond, Iyanla, and I believe a lady named, it was either Lindsay or Leslie, but tapping was what they introduced Diamond to get her to stir up what's going on inside her so she could release it. And it looked like the exercise really did help her, and it seemed like she really did benefit from it. So that was pretty much the end. That was the end of her. She met Miss Sabrina. She met the retired veteran police officer, and the lady at the very end. And then she talked to Iyanla again before the show closed out. So, y'all, I think I was kind of all over the place a little bit, but it just is what it is. And I just want to hear back from y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about the episode, and what y'all think, just what y'all think in general. And I just want to, before I get off of here, rest in peace to Philando Castile, Sandra Bland, Tamir Rice, Terrence Crutcher, Trayvon Martin. It's a lot of others. Alton Sterling. It's a lot of people. You know, it's a whole lot of people. And I think even though the world is definitely showing its ass on a regular basis and without shame, not everybody in the world is a bad person. And I believe there are still good people in the world. So whenever you get an opportunity to show somebody some love, love on them as best you can. Tell them you care about them. Tell them you miss them. And yeah, y'all, that's it. I'm going to get off of here, and I will catch y'all in the next video.